is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network, your podcast for Missouri athletics here on KCS, and super stoked as always to be joined by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Listen, we are less than 2 weeks away, nearing a week away from the Missouri Tigers' first game of the season. It being on a Thursday is throwing me off a little bit, and also I thought that for the longest time this weekend, I thought the game was this week, so I was a little confused kind of the whole time. I don't even think there's an extra week in the month, but Gabe, how are you doing? How are you adjusting to a Thursday game?
Well, we'll see next week. I'll be fine until I get home at like 3 a.m. Friday, and then the next day is still Friday, and I don't know what day it is. So that won't be great, but I'll be good up till then.
All you can ask for. Maggie, how are you doing? How are you adjusting to the football? Football's here. Those have been preseason games on. Week 0 is this week when we're recording this podcast. Football's here.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I don't know how great the games are. I think the lines are all massive. I think the Notre Dame Navy game line is like 21, or I don't know. They're all huge, but it's football, so you can't complain. I'm stoked to get over to Como next Thursday. I'll be at the game, so probably at the Yingling Power Mizzou tailgate. So come hang out with us over in Lot P. That's where I'm gonna be. So yeah, I'm excited. I head out of town on Friday, so I'm actually stoked that it's on Thursday. Kind of get out of the way so we can kind of chill out and just watch football. Well, there's a couple good games on our that's that weekend. These lame games out of the way this weekend, get our game out of the way, and then watch some good football.
Yeah, week 0 does not have the most marquee matchups when you start to look it down. I do the college football show also on the network here with Matt Miller and Matt Lane, and we had kind of been scheduling out all of the conference previews that we were going to do. I was like, okay, we're going to preview all the Power 5 conferences, and I was like, okay, perfect. And that leads right into a week 0. And then I looked at the week 0 schedule, and I was like, well, maybe we might want to talk about the group of 5 conferences.
I will stand for no Vandy Hawaii slander on this podcast. That's the headliner of the.
You're not stoked about what our Vandy beat Hawaii by 40 last year? And then I remember everybody was like, oh, Vandy's going to crush Mizzou. They beat Hawaii by 40. And I was like, just like repeat what you just said. It was like, that just doesn't mean very much.
Timmy Chang ain't walking through that door for Hawaii. I think he is the coach, but he can't play quarterback.
He is the coach, and he technically will walk through the door for Hawaii, but he will not be taking any snaps. No, they're also going to be playing in an active construction zone. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Vanderbilt Stadium, but it's going to be under construction the whole season, and the people are going to make jokes about Vanderbilt the whole time, but it's supposed to be really cool. I've seen some of the renderings for it. They're actually putting money into their football program, which is a new thing for Vanderbilt. But I didn't mean to get so far off topic with the week 0 action. But there are some really good games on that Thursday, as you mentioned, Maggie. And really that first weekend of where everyone starts to play that week 1. I don't know why the NCAA decided we needed a week 0. I don't know why that happened, but
yes, you do. It's the same reason they decided everything else. The games are on TV. People will watch them. They will get advertisements, and it's more money to not pay the players.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. Week 0 coming up here, and Missouri takes on South Dakota. This is what we're going to do for this podcast. They take them on in week 1, but we're going to kind of go through the schedule and talk about each game. It's hard to necessarily know a lot about this Missouri team, Gabe, kind of as we've been talking about on these other podcasts, because you've had some of these open practices. You don't really see a whole lot, but I think we have somewhat of a good idea of what we're going to get from Missouri on the defensive side of the ball and some of the other aspects, but the offense is going to be kind of up in the air to see kind of what's been going on. But first, I think we should talk about the comments that I believe Eli Drinkwitz made, that he even said that it's kind of a 2-quarterback race right now. It seems like Jake Garcia is out of it for the starting quarterback job. Gabe, what are your impressions of that? And were you surprised at all that he was able to eliminate Jake Garcia from this contest so early?
Not really. I mean, they've gone through 3 weeks of camp now. I mean, I think you need it narrowed down to 2, right? You can go into the season opener trying to decide between 2, but you're not realistically going to get 3 guys reps. snaps that matter in a game. And it was kind of interesting because he said on Saturday night, his introductory comments were about position battles and stuff. And I just said, I assume one of those is still quarterback when, do you anticipate making a decision before the season opener? And he said, Brady and Sam, I expect they both play in the opener and we'll let them kind of decide it on the field. And so I tweeted that out, and it led to like everybody writing these stories that Drinkwitz is going to play two. I don't know. I just didn't realize it was breaking news. Like he basically said in Nashville on July 17th that he wasn't opposed to that idea. I think this is what we've all expected, is that those two guys, unless one of them just really distanced himself in fall camp, those two guys would both play in these first couple games, and that it doesn't seem that one or the other has run away with it. And that's where we're at. And, there's a little bit of, well, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. But I think this is the right situation. This is the right decision based on what they have. I don't think they have a guy that is clearly shown, I'm your guy. So let them sort it out on the field in the first 2 weeks. And then whoever is your quarterback for K-State, ideally, that's your guy going forward.
I think with things like NIL, and bringing somebody in like Sam Horn, who is a pretty highly rated quarterback coming out of high school, you kind of have to give him the opportunity to be a starting quarterback. I mean, at a program like Missouri, maybe he wouldn't be a starting quarterback at a program like Georgia as a sophomore. But at a program like Missouri, I feel like you kind of have to. But at the same time, Brady Cook was your starter last year. You can't not give him the opportunity to also come in and start game one. I don't think that's fair to him, because I don't think that he's the reason that we were losing solely the reason that we lost all 6 games last year, 7 games, or however many games that we lost last year. I don't think he's the sole reason. He may have even helped us. I mean, I would say the Arkansas game, we won because of Brady Cook. So, I mean, I think giving them both a chance. I liked what you said, Gabe, on Power Mizzou this morning in your 10 thoughts. Doing the maybe start one of them the first quarter and the third quarter for one game, and then doing the other one the second and the fourth quarter. I liked you saying that because it does give them both the opportunity, the same game situations, to come out, get those first snaps, the exact same opportunity, the exact same crowd noise, the exact same game jitters. I like that idea. Do I think that Drink and, Kirby will do that? I don't know. I do like that idea, though.
But it's important, I think, to have them both play early, because whoever starts, we're going to assume Brady Cook takes the first series.
Correct.
I think that's probably likely. So, look, let's say they go down and score on their first 2 series. Well, then it's 14-0, and that's a different situation for Sam Horn to walk into than 0-0 against Middle Tennessee. Right. It changes the game. It changes the intensity of everybody on the field, and I think it's important that they both play in the first half of both games, because you need them out there with the same receivers. You can't put one of them out there with Burden, Weiss, and Mookie Cooper, and the other one out there with a couple of true freshmen. I mean, you're not getting the same evaluation. So if you're using these 2 weeks to truly decide the quarterback competition, it just has to be somewhat even footing.
No, I absolutely agree. And when you talk about this quarterback battle, it's obviously been probably the biggest thing from camp, from the offseason. When you talk about Mizzou and the topic of it, I'm interested to see how they do react in these game situations with Brady having so much experience when it comes to playing in these situations with the whole year last year, how Sam Horn will react to different game-like situations. I don't think anyone is necessarily worried about South Dakota State or Middle Tennessee, and those are the first 2 games, obviously, on Missouri's schedule, as we alluded to. And it's good that they probably have those first 2 games before they play a team like Kansas State, which that's going to be a legit contest to really see where they're at. That's the reigning Big 12 champion. So, I mean, you get to see where you are. They did lose a decent amount of offensive firepower, I think, for Kansas State did, but Their defense might have a little more up in the air too. So we can get into the Kansas State game a little bit more, but focusing on kind of the first 2 weeks, what do you want to see outside of quarterback, Gabe? What do you want to see from this team? I know we kind of talk about a lot from these games. You see more of negatives than you do positives, but what is one of the things you want to see Missouri do really well in these first 2 weeks?
You want to see the quarterbacks not have to really have their uniforms washed because the offensive line has done a nice job keeping the other team off of them. And you want to go into the fourth quarter being able to throw Jake Garcia out there or, Josh Manning and Daniel Blood, these freshman wide receivers. And like, they're different games because Middle Tennessee is an FBS program that, look, they beat Missouri a few years ago. They almost beat Missouri here in 2003. There are worlds in which Middle Tennessee can win that game. I mean, this is not back-to-back walkovers. But if you lose either of these games, like what we say about the last 10 doesn't even matter. If Missouri's not 2-0, the rest of it, I mean, it's not going to go well the rest of the year. Right. We're more likely talking about a coaching change than what bowl game.
Maggie, any thoughts on the first two?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to see if we can not give up some of those big plays because I know, obviously we had a good defense last year and we know that and, all of that, but we still gave up some big plays those first couple of games, especially to Louisiana Tech. And I'm just hoping that, our secondary can not give up those plays because you give those up. That's what we did in Georgia. You saw the telltale signs that was coming, and you saw them early. So if we can eliminate those against these early teams, we can potentially eliminate them against those better competition down there.
Yeah, when you talk about the big plays in the first two games, I really want to see the defense flex their muscle because they do. Kind of as we've been talking about on the last few episodes, is the defense has a lot of expectations. And Gabe, the point that you brought up a whole lot is like, let's see them now do it. Is it going to be harder for them to do it now that they have these expectations? So what better way would it be than to go out and maybe pitch a shutout against South Dakota or maybe put out a really good performance against Middle Tennessee? I think that's what I know a lot of, there's question marks on the offensive side of the ball, but what I'm most excited to see is all the talent that they have on this defensive side of the ball, how it translates to this year. As we've talked about, they've got Tyron Hopper, a guy who was named to the All-SEC preseason team. They've got all kinds of guys on the defensive side of the ball named to these All-SEC teams, guys that were projected to go mid to late day 2 picks. Like that's a very solid paycheck. If you're going to go to the NFL, that's a good spot to be picked. They chose to come back to the to Mizzou, and I'm really we talk about the defensive line too and like what rotations they're going to do along there. I think that's going to be really interesting too. But I just want to see the defense flex their muscle basically.
Well, and we're really talking about hopefully the first 2.5 quarters, right? This is the equivalent of an NFL preseason game. Look, Brady Cook and Sam Horn, they need to play because they're deciding the quarterback competition. Luther Burden needs to be on that field for approximately as long as the game is in question. Tyron Hopper, KAD, Darius Robinson, same thing. Get them out there, let them sweat. If you're up 34-6 in late second quarter, then tell those guys to go sit down and not worry about it because getting a guy hurt in the second quarter of a 4-touchdown game would be, I mean, it's going to happen somewhere in week 1. You know it is. I mean, that's how football goes, right? There's going to be a season-altering injury somewhere in week 1. So once you have this in hand, the guys that know what they're doing, Jalen Carlisle knows what he's doing. He knows this defense. He does not need 40 snaps against South Dakota, right? This is the game where it's my least favorite game of the year, mostly because on Sunday morning when I wake up to do snap counts, I just have to keep adding a row and keep adding a row. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's not going to play again all year. And now I have 2 snaps against South Dakota that's in my table for the rest of the year, right? So that's what week 1 should be. And week 2, I don't think it's quite that. I don't think you're hanging up jerseys at halftime. But I also don't think you should be in significant trouble late in this one either, or that one.
Totally agree. The Middle Tennessee game is going to be wildly interesting when it gets to the time. I haven't done a whole lot of digging into Middle Tennessee. I don't know what they have this year, what they brought
What
back.
the hell kind of podcast host are you?
I know. I'm awful performance on my part. But I will look. I will promise, Gabe. We're going to come to that Middle Tennessee podcast, and I'm going to come with so many numbers for you. You're going to be blown away.
Good, because you know how many I'm going to come with? The same number I have today,
which is fair. But then the schedule really starts to ramp up week 3, obviously, with Kansas State. But before we talk about Kansas State, I've got to tell you about our friends at Home Field Apparel. Look, they just had that Mizzou drop a couple weeks ago. Great stuff. Waiting on my stuff to get in from Home Field Apparel. I'm incredibly excited to wear it. Super comfortable shirts. It wouldn't be the first order I get from Home Field. Won't be the last order I get from Home Field, because they are dropping new stuff seemingly every week. They're refreshing stocks for Mizzou like they did last week. All the other area schools, I don't know why you'd want that, but they've got some pretty sweet Tulane stuff if you're into Tulane, or if you want to support any other smaller schools. I know I like to watch the MAC. They got a good Toledo collection. Whatever other colleges you want, Home Field Apparel has you covered. And we have a special podcast code. We got a code KCSN23. If you are purchasing for the first time at homefieldapparel.com, get 15% off using that code KCSN23 at checkout. It helps us out, so really do appreciate you guys using that. They got a great lineup of Mizzou stuff. They really did refresh it. They got a Script Tigers. They got a Dunking Truman, pretty sick. And they also have this isn't in the new drop, but they had a baseball tee with Truman on the follow through on the baseball swing. It's even like a 3/4 length sleeve shirt too. Yeah, it's pretty slick. I'm going to have to, I guess, buy their whole collection, and you will too, at homefieldapparel.com. And as well, if you want more than Mizzou stuff, they have obviously 150 plus colleges. That's a lot. So they've got it cooking over there at homefieldapparel.com. So get stocked up for this season as you're going out to Faroe. And we'll be right back talking about the Kansas State game, a very interesting game. There's a lot to talk about with both of these teams. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into Mizzou That's Who, your podcast from Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. All right, let's look into the real games now. No disrespect to Middle Tennessee, but still at the same time, that's a little bit disrespectful. So I apologize to any Middle Tennessee people listening to the podcast. I don't know why you'd be listening to it, but I apologize. Let's talk about the Kansas State game, because I think that this is going to be a very big measuring stick for this Missouri team.
I want to defer to Maggie's first thoughts on this, because I'm interested to see what the Missouri fan attitude is about this game this year.
So I think we absolutely need to win this game. And obviously that's like a personal thing for me, because I'm tired of taking the abuse on Twitter. But also I think it's just like it's a vital game to move forward as a program. I don't know. K-State lost a lot last year. I really do think that they did. I think their strongest positions are offensive line. I think that they're very good offensive line. I think they're decent at quarterback. I mean, he came in. What's his name?
Will Howard.
Will Howard came in after the Martinez injury. Came in, played pretty well, I would say. I wouldn't say that I think that he's, gonna win a Heisman or anything, but I would say he came in and played pretty well under the circumstance. Won his team a Big 12 title, so you can't really dog him too much. I would say their defense is, suspect. I wouldn't say it's great by any means. I would say our defense is better. I would say our wide receivers are better. Quarterback, I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Running backs also have to wait and see, because you didn't see anything other than Deuce Vaughn last year, so I don't know what they have behind Deuce Vaughn. So it's kind of hard to compare what they have versus what we have, besides their offensive line being better than ours. I don't see our offensive line being better than theirs, even improved. Right. I don't see their defense being better than ours. And there's no way theirs improved over what they lost. So it'll be very interesting. I think we have an advantage with it being in Columbia. I think they had an advantage with it being in Manhattan. I think they had an advantage with it being in a monsoon, with them being a heavy running team. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. So, I mean, if we can maybe make it not be that type of weather, fingers crossed, that would be nice. But yeah, I would give us a slight advantage in the game, honestly.
I'm really interested, Gabe, before you hop in here, what the line is going to be for that game. I don't think it's out yet. But
I think we'd be underdog.
I think so too.
I think it'll be K-State 3.5, 4 points.
Yeah. That's about what I would say.
So by proxy, I feel like I know a little bit about K-State just because of the K-State guys on our network, right? On the KC Sports Network, and they do a phenomenal job covering K-State. They are not worried about Missouri at all. They think that this game is kind of one of those that they're just gonna ride in, and it's gonna be okay. We've got them. That's gonna be it. Now, I think when it comes to college games, when I think about picking college games and who has the advantage, I look at like two things specifically, and that's coaching and that's quarterback play. Will Howard played very good for Kansas State down the stretch. Now, we can have a conversation about that competition he played down the stretch. He did have to play, I think he played TCU twice. TCU's defense isn't the stoutest, as people know by the national championship game. And really, all of their games were very high-scoring games. They were just able to outscore their opponents, and their offense was just so dynamic last year. That's what made TCU so fun to watch. But Kansas State is so interesting to me when talking about like Will Howard, because is he a good quarterback? I think he's pretty good. I think he's not the best quarterback in that conference. I think Quinn Ewers is the best one. I think Jalen Daniels is better than him. And you can probably make an argument that Dylan Gabriel, when healthy, is better than Will Howard too. And I don't think that would be that far of a stretch. So he's a top 4 quarterback at minimum in that conference. And I do think they brought in Treshaun Ward, a guy transfer for the running back position that I think could be pretty dynamic in their offense as well. They seem to be pretty confident in the receivers that they have. I don't think they brought in a whole lot of transfer wide receivers. They just have like a lot of younger guys stepping up. RJ Garcia is that guy that they kind of anticipate to take a big jump this year. But that offensive line is really good. Cooper Beebe is like a projected first-round pick already heading into this season. And he was down at O-line masterminds with all these college kids down there. So they're very interesting on the offensive side of the ball. The defense, they did lose a whole lot. When you talk about the back end, they lost a lot of guys on that back end of that secondary. Felix obviously going to the Chiefs. Daniel Green, I think, is hurt right now. Like one of their biggest defensive pieces is hurt. They're not really sure when he's going to come in. But I agree with you, Maggie, that this is a very pivotal game in the Drinkwitz era. I don't know. I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but like if he beats Kansas State, things are going in the right direction to like, hey, you can point to that game and say like, hey, that was a team that won the Big 12 championship last year. It was kind of like the LSU team, right? Like they won the national championship that last year, but they did lose a ton of guys. Now Kansas State didn't lose that many guys because they didn't have a historic draft class coming out of there. But it is such a very interesting game because I do think that Kansas State will be favored. I think Kansas State is a good, well-coached football team. I think they've got a lot going for them in the trenches. But I think Kansas State does have the edge for me personally.
So here's the old saying, right, is familiarity breeds contempt. It's the complete opposite when it comes to college sports. It's familiarity breeds confidence.
Yes.
Because what we do every offseason, we know Missouri's recruiting class. We know the guys who maybe haven't played a lot at Missouri, but we think are going to play a lot this year, right? Like Missouri fans are going, oh, Theo Weiss, man, former 5-star, he's going to be great. K-State fans may not know Theo Weiss is even at Missouri or care. Right. Now, the flip side of that is I knew K-State brought in a transfer running back. I would have had to go look up who it was. So all people do in the offseason is I know everything my team brought in. They're not even talking about our freshmen and our transfers and all that. All I look at on the other team is, well, they don't have Adrian Martinez, who, by the way, 12 months ago, Adrian Martinez was the sole reason Missouri fans thought they were winning that game by 4 touchdowns.
Right.
They don't have Deuce Vaughn, so he's going to be replaced by absolutely no one. Like, they just can't run the ball. Felix is gone. They have no passer. My point is, the team we follow, we know everything about, and so, okay, we know what's there in replace. We don't know that about the other teams, and I don't expect anybody to. I don't know it at this point.
Right.
But what it leads to is we put importance on the losses from other teams and not importance on the losses from the team we follow. And I think it leads to this. I mean, look, August is the month where every fan base in the country thinks they're winning 10 games. I mean, they just do. And I'll be interested to see Missouri fans' approach to this game, because literally 12 months ago it was, well, they play in the soft-ass Big 12. We cannot let a Big 12 team beat us. Missouri would have finished like 6th in the Big 12 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just true. It doesn't matter. They're a good football team. They will be a good football team when they come here. It would be a very impressive win. I think that there is a risk of the fan base and the team and the coaching staff putting too much on that 1 week, because it is hugely important.
Yes.
But the danger in doing that in a week 3 game is, what if you lose? Then how do you get the air back in the sails for Memphis, which is not a gimme? Vandy there, which is, you should win it, but it's not a gimme. You know, it's one of those, if you lose, you don't even have to lose bad. If you lose, you cannot let it beat you again.
Right.
You know, and I just, there's already a ton of people calling it the most important game of Drinkwitz's career. And while I'm not sure I don't agree with that, but that's a moving target, right? I remember in 2007, Gary Pinkel kept saying, yeah, it's the biggest game we've ever played. And then they'd win it. And then next week was the biggest game they'd ever played, right? And so, like, this is the same way. K-State's this huge game, but you can't bill it as the biggest game you've ever played, because if you lose it, how do you recover from that? You know, so I think it's very, like, the best way I've heard a college football season described is it's 12 individual tests. And how you fared on the last one has very little to do with how you're going to fare on the next one. The K-State game last year at this point doesn't really have much impact, because these two teams are both wildly different. But yeah, I think K-State will be favored. I think if you played it 10 times, K-State probably wins 6 of them, but you don't have to play it 10 times. You just got to be better that one day.
Right.
I think that's the thing, though, is I think that's the issue that Missouri and K-State, and like why they see so differently on the subject, is that so many K-State fans are like, you're so confident in this game, but we beat you last year 40-12, and they actually say 40-6 because they don't count what.
I actually completely side with them on that,
which is fine.
Counted the over for me. It hit the over, so I agree.
Which is fine. They can see what they want. I mean, if they're going to say that, then they can't count their last touchdown they scored against Alabama in the fourth quarter, though. So, I mean, you got to be fair there. But, like, you have to look at it, too, as a, like, that you're not the same team as you were last year. We're not the same team as you were last year. You can't say you're going to beat us by 50 just because you beat us by 30 last year. I mean, it is a completely different team, a completely different coaching staff. I mean, their coaching staff isn't different, and I actually love Colin Klein. I think he's going to be a great offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be a great, probably, head coach somewhere someday. Yeah. But, like, you do have to look at things outside of homerism and outside of things and be like you said, Gabe, kind of like, things have changed. What have we replaced? What have you replaced? Not just, oh, well, we beat you by 30 last year. No way we don't beat you by 40 this year. I mean, it's moving. Like, everything is moving parts.
I think it's the flip side. Last year, Missouri fans came into that game so much more confident than they should have. It made no sense to me. I could see it coming a mile away. Well, they play in the Big 12. They suck. No, they don't. And I think I'm not saying that affects the way the team played, but I think the fan base was so. I think K-State fans will come to Columbia fully expecting to win that game. I think it'll be a better game than last year was, certainly. Side note, by the way, on Colin Klein, and I was listening to Wetzel and Forty and Ross Dellinger. Do you know who Colin Klein was at the Heisman Trophy ceremony with? The two guys he was sitting with?
Yes, I do. It's Johnny Manziel.
Manziel and Manti Te'o. Like, I mean, just like the most not go together group all time, right? It's like crazy controversy, and
Colin Clyde.
Just all American. Like in 80 years, if you ask anybody outside, actually today, if you ask anybody outside of Manhattan, Kansas, was Colin Klein a finalist for the Heisman Trophy? I guarantee like 95% of them are going, who is Colin?
Who's songs?
Like, what do you mean? And that's no disrespect to him. It's just, I mean, he had a hell of a season. It was just,
he did.
The wildness of that group of Heisman Trophy finalists is amazing.
I saw some Kansas State fans talking about the Johnny Manziel documentary, and also Manti Te'o has a documentary out as well. It's like two guys also have documentaries out about
documentary.
We need the Colin Klein one. But they're saying, I saw some Kansas State fans say, like, just reminded that Colin Klein should have won that Heisman. Like, no, he shouldn't have.
No.
Johnny Manziel should have won.
Manti Te'o also should not.
Absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel had a hell of a season that year. And we shouldn't just gloss over the fact that he maybe as a guy wasn't doing the model stand-up stuff. But, I mean, hell of a football season. That award's for football playing, not human being. So,
yeah,
to be fair.
But like back on topic, that Sunday after the K-State game is going to be wild overreaction one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Either Drinkwitz is getting fired or Missouri's winning 10 games, and there will be zero in between. There will be no perspective among the Missouri fan base on that Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we got to take another break. We still got a lot of games to get to. We'll probably buzz through these games and give our final predictions here coming up after this break. Stick with us on the other side.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, welcome back into Mizzou. That's who, your podcast for Kansas Sports, or for Missouri sports on Kansas City Sports Network. I've already looked ahead to what we got next here for Missouri. They have another non-conference game in Memphis and St. Louis. I think it's a great opportunity for Missouri to kind of capitalize on that St. Louis market, again, as they've been so good in recruiting-wise there. But to get back in the Dome and play there is going to be a very exciting game. But, Gabe, as you mentioned, not a walk in the park. That's not a gimme, I don't think, for Missouri.
I mean, I think we can all agree that anything less than 4-1 heading into LSU is borderline disaster for this team, right?
Yeah.
Like, they can lose one. I mean, if they lose to K-State, it's not a disastrous season. Even if they beat K-State and were to somehow trip against Van, you've got to be a minimum 4-1 going into LSU, I think.
I agree with that. Maggie, your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, because if you go into it 3-2, I mean, what are you looking at that point? I mean, 6-6,
struggling to get to 6. Yeah.
I mean, that's max. That ceiling at that point is, because I don't even know where you find maybe 3 more wins if you're not.
Yeah.
You're not beating if you're not beating Vandy or if you're not beating Memphis, I don't see how you're beating 3 other teams in the SEC. I don't see how it's happening.
I mean, you catch Florida on a bet. I'm not sure about Florida. Florida's an interesting team. They seem weird to me. But yeah, Gabe, I think you're exactly right. Going into LSU, I know some people were talking about like, oh, Mizzou could be 6-0, and realistically, they could be. They could be 6-0 going in. 5-0, yeah.
5-0 headed to LSU. It's certainly possible, and I have not looked at the schedule of games, but like if they're 5-0 and LSU's coming in here and has beaten Florida State in the opener and is a top 5 team, like yes, you are legitimately talking maybe game day 2010 Oklahoma type weekend in Columbia, but there's a long way to get there.
I think it's like what is it, backyard brawl or whatever West Virginia pit is.
West Virginia, that's not a good game.
I think it's.
I mean, it just isn't.
No, you're right.
But for some reason, they always put like that game as some prime time, whatever. And then I think it might be Red River rivalry too. I don't know. They lost 49-0 last year though, so if they put that on College Game Day, I'll probably lose.
It just should roll.
Well, Alabama's at A&M that weekend. Kentucky's at Georgia that weekend. Oklahoma, Texas. You know, Oklahoma. Here's what I want to see: Oklahoma, Texas. I think SEC Nation should go this year. That would be the ultimate.
That'd be really good,
wouldn't it?
Really good.
If you're 5-0, if we are 5-0 and LSU comes to Mizzou and they don't put College Game Day there after they went to Lawrence at 5-0 for TCU, and then KU didn't win another game until they played whomever crappy team they played, I will lose my mind on that.
Well, and LSU has Florida State, Arkansas, at Ole Miss before that, at Mississippi State. So like they have big boy games that they'll have to go win.
Right.
That's true.
I don't know if it's that likely that both teams will be undefeated when you get there. Who knows? LSU seems like a team that really could be something this year. Like they got some votes. They're getting some attention. They could be something.
Brian Kelly is going to win a national title at LSU at some point. I don't know if it's this year, but he is going to win.
It's that second year luck, you know?
I mean, everybody wins one at LSU. Literally, their last three, I don't think Les Miles is a good football coach. He won one. I know Ed Orgeron isn't a good football coach. He won one. Nick Saban is a good football coach. He won.
He's pretty.
It's my favorite game. That's my favorite week one game though. Is Florida State LSU.
Oh yeah.
Like,
because Florida State might be something. They might have some. Florida State might have something cooking down there too. Like they might.
And I mean,
Jordan Travis might be real. But yeah.
The second half of the Missouri schedule, though, I mean, and really starting with week 6 is there's. I mean, I'm not sure that they are favored in a game after Vanderbilt, to be quite honest. I mean, let's run through these. Home against LSU, they're not favored in that game.
No.
At Kentucky, they're probably not favored in that game. Home against South Carolina, I think they'll be favored in that game, but what if South Carolina's like 5-2, right?
Right.
At Georgia, I promise they're not
shot.
favored in that game. Home against Tennessee, not favored in that game. Home against Florida, they could be favored, and at Arkansas,
probably not.
probably not.
Not because.
But I mean, you know, that's why you have to be 4-1, because you get to October and all of a sudden you're going,
Because it's hard.
man, this is there's not one that you would expect to be favored by more than 5-6 points, maybe against South Carolina at home.
Yeah, I think that you talk about the SEC East, and we just did our SEC preview on our KCSN College Football page on YouTube. Matt Lane and I broke it down. There's so many teams in the East. So when you talk about Kentucky, I think they'll only go as far as Devin Leary can take him. He's had some injury issues. I think that's going to be a very interesting team. South Carolina, Spencer Rattler, there's a lot of hype around South Carolina, but they also had a lot of guys leave for a team that's solely like based off of vibes, right? Like they pitched like their culture so well, but they had a ton of guys leave. Not really sure what's going on in South Carolina. You look at Florida, they're replacing Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson kind of looked like a dud, but then like now you're seeing stuff from him in the NFL, and it's like, okay, maybe this guy was actually good, but maybe Billy Napier didn't know how to use him. So there's a lot of going on, I think, in the SEC East when you that fight for the bottom. I guess you could kind of call it.
I mean, I think it's the fight for third, and it's this division every year. There generally is one among Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina that people kind of view as this year. It's Tennessee, like probably the second best team in the division, and then you throw those other 4 in there, and they could if you take Missouri, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Florida, they could finish in any order and not one thing would surprise me. Missouri could finish 3rd in this division and it wouldn't surprise me, and they could also pretty easily finish 6th.
Yes.
And we don't even really know a lot about Tennessee either. We know their defense is probably not going to be great. We don't really know their quarterback situation because, I mean...
But we know that Josh Heupel's probably going to put up points.
Yeah, he'll probably put up points, but we don't really know. I mean, Milton got passed over and now he's back. So, but he was replaced for a reason. And then they lost Hyatt. I mean, obviously
They lost Tillman.
So it's like,
It didn't, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they could be really good because of what they replaced, or they could be not. I don't know.
Like, I don't think they're 10th in the country. I don't think they're challenged Georgia good.
Yeah.
But I still think preseason, you'd probably, over the course of 12 weeks, give them the nod over Missouri, Kentucky, South Carolina.
And South Carolina beat them by what last year? 30?
Yeah, they beat them by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, kind of goes back to the danger of, like, previewing the whole season in August, right? How the hell do we know what's going to happen with Missouri, Arkansas the day after Thanksgiving?
Don't tell them that, Gabe. They're supposed to listen because they think that we know. It's our secret.
Well, they're going to hold every
my
single
bad.
thing we say against us. So if we pick our record.
But if you do enough of these, you just predict it like 6 different ways, and
Oh, yeah. Just,
say you're
Right. Yeah, no, that's the way.
when I said in September, I didn't say that.
I do think that the SEC East is so interesting because you talk about Kentucky, they did win the Devin Leary sweepstakes, but that dude's had some injury issues. I don't know how well they're going to play through, but Kentucky seeming like they always have guys for some reason. They always seem like they play for Stoops over there. I think it's going to be a tough game.
They're 10 years ago Alabama light in that. I don't know. Do I care who their quarterback is? I mean, they supposedly had a first-round, second-round talent at quarterback last year, but, like, that's not how they win games.
Right.
You know, they win games because they run the ball, they're not stupid, and they play defense. And then they do some crazy, against Missouri every year. That's how they're good. But I did see earlier this week that in the last 8 years, Kentucky has finished higher in the division than predicted 7 times and lower only once. So there's this thing that people like to, I think Missouri fans like to say, well, people just overrate Kentucky. No, people actually almost every year underrate Kentucky.
Right.
I feel like them and Mississippi State are kind of in the same.
Yeah.
You always see Mississippi State ranked like to pick to finish last.
6th or 7th.
I'm like, they barely finished that low. And I talked to a couple of guys I know from Mississippi State. They're like, we finished like 4th or 5th in the West almost every year, and we're picked that low almost every year.
Because they always face some team that can't figure out they're going to run the same 4 pass plays, and they get beat like 57-12.
Which they'll be an interesting watch this year.
Yeah,
without Leach. But no, I feel like Kentucky's kind of in the same boat as we are this year. It'll be interesting to see how their offensive line has improved because their offensive line was terrible last year. I mean, theirs was probably worse than ours, and ours was bad. So
yeah. Let's finish up here with just going through each game. We're gonna give our final predictions, and we'll wrap it up here. Let's go ahead and go. I think South Dakota, we're all gonna call that a win. Right, everyone a win.
Mm-hmm.
W's. Okay. Middle Tennessee, W's all around.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Kansas State. That's going to be the first one that we might have a little bit of differences. Thoughts on Kansas State? The final score of that game.
I reserve the right to change my mind based on what I see out of Missouri's quarterbacks in the first 2 weeks and who the quarterback will be.
Yes.
If I pick that game today, I pick Kansas State like 27-20.
I agree. It's a close game. I think it's a one-score game, but I am going to edge to Kansas State on this one just because I am a little weary of the quarterback situation.
Also because, to go backwards, you asked what we want to see in the first 2 games. I want to see a Missouri team that quits committing stupid penalties.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That's on the list.
Kansas State's not going to do that to themselves. I would like to see a Missouri team that makes you beat them rather than beating itself. Like, what's the one thing you can't do on 1st and goal from the 1 foot line is false start? What's the one thing you can't do with the 3-point lead against Vanderbilt? Fumble the football. Like, wasn't just mistakes. It was like, spin the wheel of the one thing you can't do. You're guaranteed to do it.
Maggie, your thoughts?
I feel like we did this last year, and you guys both picked us to lose to K-State, and I picked us to beat K-State, and you were both right, and I was clearly wrong, by a lot. I'm gonna go opposite. I'm just gonna start us off opposite, and I'm gonna say we're gonna win, but I'm gonna do by I'm gonna do that line like a 4 points. I'm gonna say like 32-28. So I'm gonna say we're gonna score a few more points this year. I feel like 20 is still like not improving from last year. So I'm gonna say like 32-28.
You should have picked 40-6 for the rating. We need the clicks.
We do. Okay, so Gabe and I both have Missouri at 2-1. Maggie, you have them at 3-0. Memphis, I'm gonna write that one down as a W.
Yeah, I'll take us as a win too.
Okay. Vanderbilt, I'm gonna put that down as a W as well. And I think that's a consensus vote there. LSU, I'm gonna put that one as an L. So I have the Tigers at 4-2 now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I'm gonna have those 5.
I think it's closer than, like, I don't think they get just run out of the stadium, but I think LSU wins that game.
They've got a lot of talent.
I think we lose by like 12.
That's fair.
They got a lot of talent on that team. Now, to be fair, Missouri has a lot of talent too, but I mean, it's.
I would prefer Mekhi Wingo not come in and have like his best game ever, but
Fair.
At Kentucky. So Gabe and I, we have 4-2, right, Gabe? And Maggie, you're 5-1 at Kentucky. Golly,
I think we get a win there. I'm gonna give us a win there. I think it's been a long time since we've won there. And I'm gonna give us.
I'll go win on this game, and first of all, I think Missouri is really tired of Kentucky. But also just like, this is why when you pick game by game, you have to do some things that kind of go counterintuitive to kind of reverse engineer to get to the record you think you want to pick, right? Mm-hmm. Because like if you pick every game individually, it goes differently than if you just say, what's their record going to be?
Right.
So I'm picking a win.
I think I'm going to do the same thing. Well, now they're not going to win because we all just picked them to win this game.
Right.
South Carolina.
Regardless, it's going to be not like something stupid's going to happen.
Oh, nothing normal happens in a Missouri-Kentucky game, and you should always be fully prepared for that. Also, South Carolina, that game is at home. I think that South Carolina are frauds. I'm going to say it. I think that they are a fake good football team, and I don't understand the hype. I think that Missouri wins this one. I'd say handily.
So you think we beat them? You think we take 5 in a row?
Oh, yeah. I don't think Spencer Rattler's good. I think that's fake noise.
This one's hard for me. Because I think
you guys are making me very worried about how confident I was in that pick.
No, the only reason is because I think that South Carolina and Shane Beamer, and I hate this phrase, like I hate it so bad, but I feel like we're almost at this point, like they're Super Bowl. Like I feel like, and I hate that phrase, but I think that they want to beat us so freaking bad. And like maybe that's just like a fan perspective, and like because I see that so often. Well, like those record predictors that they have like the East and West. On like every single one, I see like South Carolina fans like putting Mizzou at like 4-8, and we're on the bottom. And every single time I see it, it's always a South Carolina fan. It's like Gamecock Online or Gamecock Nation, like every single time. And I'm like, you really think? I mean, whatever. But I feel like it's just them being petty. I feel like they want to beat us more than almost like anything else.
So did you actually pick that game?
No, I haven't. I'm waiting for you.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd picked that game and I just lost it somewhere.
No, I'm so just kind of waiting because I don't know.
She was confused by my confidence is what happened.
So this is another one where like if I'm just picking South Carolina, Missouri individually, I think I would pick Missouri to win. If Missouri is coming in 5-2 off a win in Kentucky with Georgia next, that's a super easy game to say there's a letdown there, right? So like if Missouri goes and beats Kentucky, I will probably pick them to lose to South Carolina that week. If Missouri loses to Kentucky, I will pick them to beat South Carolina. But since I picked them to beat Kentucky, I guess I have to pick them to lose to South Carolina.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a major trap game. So if I pick them to win, that puts me at 7-1, right? No.
Yeah,
that puts me at 7. Whew. Well, my overall, I have it's at 8-4.
And they can still easily be 7-1, ended up 8-4.
I know. But I'm trying to think of who my other win would be because I'm like, I guess it would be Florida or Arkansas.
You got Florida and Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just chalk up that Arkansas game for you.
Okay. I'm gonna give them the win against South Carolina.
7-1. Missouri will go to Georgia ranked in the top 50.
Ranked 5.
But
Not that
but I don't have them beating Georgia, so they're out of the top 15.
So I'm at 6-2. Gabe, you're at
5-3.
5-3. Oh, we're all over the spectrum here. Maggie's at 7-1. Georgia, I think we're all going to chalk down as a loss.
That is the game I am the second most confident in on the entire schedule, behind South Dakota.
That's fair.
Because, like, you want to talk about a team that is going to be on a mission to prove that last year was a fluke. Kirby Smart is going to have that team foaming at the mouth. You almost let them ruin it last year.
Yep.
Like, I hope that is an 11 a.m. game and just gets over early. Yeah. I don't think it's pretty.
So we're all going else for Georgia, I assume. Because I'm with you, Gabe. So I got them at 6-3. Hey, still bowl eligible. That's good. Got to the bowl eligibility. Tennessee at Tennessee at home. I think I'm going to give them a loss for this one.
Remember what happened last time they came to Columbia? I'm taking a loss on that one too.
Of the 3 games that everybody is assuming are losses, this is the one I think could most likely be a win. But I just can't pick Missouri to control Josh Heupel until I see him do it. I mean, those games, even before Heupel was there, I mean, Jeremy Pruitt embarrassed him, like 35 or 38-12. So, like, while I think Missouri could win that game, I won't pick it in the preseason.
By the way, Gabe, that game doesn't count anymore. So just saying.
Okay.
Mizzou has the overall win record over Tennessee.
Okay, we're playing that game.
I don't make the rules.
I saw the 1994 Missouri basketball team go unbeaten in the Big 8 and go to the Elite 8, but I guess I didn't happen.
Hey.
Okay.
I don't know.
We got 2 more games left. Where are we all sitting record wise now? I think I'm at 6-4.
I've got them 5-5, which I'm not comfortable with, but
I'm 7-3 now.
Florida and Arkansas. So Florida, that's a tough one for me. I don't know how. I don't know really a lot about this Florida team. They got a lot of
I'm taking the win. I'm taking the win with Florida at home in November. They're gonna complain about how cold it is. Like they typically do. So that's gonna be my 8-3.
I've got Missouri in this one. I could see. I think this year for Florida, Billy Napier just has to avoid being so bad that they run him out of town after this.
Yeah.
Because he's recruiting like crazy. And I think if he can get down the road a year or two, he's got a chance. I think he's a good coach, but he's got to get there. But I'll take Missouri in this game.
I'm going to take Missouri as well. You talked me into it, Gabe. So last one of Arkansas. So this was my thought process here because I think that they can split those 2 games between Florida and Arkansas. Like I think that's a very realistic thing is splitting them, but I just don't. I think they'd beat Arkansas. I don't think that Arkansas is a good football team, truthfully. And I'm not convinced with Arkansas and everything. So I'm gonna take them having taken the last 2 games. So that gets to an 8-win season.
Yeah, I'm picking Missouri because they've usually won this game. I mean, I think Arkansas's got probably a little more talent, but I'll pick Missouri in this one because what Maggie was talking about with K-State people, I've seen with Arkansas people. Like, Arkansas people are just assuming this is a win.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you assume that in this matchup. But mostly I'm picking Missouri because I've got to get them to 7-5. And I've got them sitting 6-5, so that requires me to pick this game as a win. Like,
yeah,
I'm more confident. I'm more confident in 7-5 than I am in picking these individual games.
That's fair.
I have us at 8-4. So I have a process of elimination losing to Arkansas. This is another kind of similar to my South Carolina pick where, no matter how much Arkansas fans say they don't care about this game, I do think that they care about this game. I do think that Sam Pittman wants to win this game. I watch media days. I watch those interviews. I watch those guys come on and those Locked On Arkansas videos. I watch those guys be like, there's no reason we should lose to Mizzou. We have so much more talent. I watch them run their mouth about it all the time. They want to win this game too. Games in Fayetteville. They should be a little bit better than they have been. He's good. He's in his last year that he's gonna leave. He's gonna get drafted. Rocket Sanders is good. I'm gonna pick them to win that game in KJ's last game in Arkansas.
You know how much time we could have saved? Like, this has been a 56-minute podcast. We really could have just said, okay, pick the record against K-State, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, and Arkansas. Because that's what this season comes down to. It's what you think their record is in those 5 games.
Yeah. Yeah, but everybody wants to hear what your opinion was on Middle Tennessee State.
Everybody wants something to hold against you, right?
Now you told me this now, Gabe. We went 56 minutes. You could have told me this before we started the show.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I don't really think about what I'm going to say or what we do until it happens. So I'm pretty good hindsight, but planning not my thing here.
It's fair. All right, so I have Gabe. Both you and I have him at 7-5. Correct, Maggie? I'm at 8-4
for now.
Did you have him losing the last 2 games? Both, Tucker?
Wait, I had him winning the last 2. Did I mess my math up?
Oh, you 100%.
He had him beating Arkansas for sure.
Yeah, I think you had him at least 8-4.
That's interesting. I think they split the last 2 games because I don't remember what I said. Somebody will go back.
You had him losing to K-State, then you had him losing to LSU, Georgia, and Tennessee, and that was it. So
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, okay. Yeah. We're good. Math sound. Okay. That's why I host podcasts and don't teach math. But I appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of this podcast season preview. Next week, we're going to have a riveting week 1 preview against the South Dakota State. That's going to
Coyotes. No.
Just South Dakota.
South Dakota. I said that and I was like, that's not right.
That's South Dakota State. Jackrabbits, yes. I used to have a South Dakota State Jackrabbit hat. It was a very nice hat.
That's a good mascot. But appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of this podcast here. We had to think about the Missouri Tigers. We'll be back next week, as I mentioned, with that week 1 preview. So until then, for Gabe DeArmond, Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you later.